Alright, let's build our A/B test. In this course, we will use Google Optimize for this and briefly have a look at VWO. We will use Optimize as it is the most used tool in the market and has a free version available. So if you have a website but no testing tool yet, you can practice without additional costs. But there are many testing tools out there in the market. Besides Google Optimize and VWO, there's Optimizely, A/B Tasty, Convert, Chameleon, and a few more. In my experience, these tools do pretty much the same thing. They're pretty similar, besides the price you pay for it. Of course, Optimizely and A/B Tasty, the more expensive tools out there, have some more features, including full-stack solutions, whereas the free version of Google Optimize has some limitations as you cannot run more than 5 experiments simultaneously, and there's a limit of 250 lines of JavaScript in one variation. If you have to decide what tool to use, check your long-term goals and budget. Then select your favorite tools, conduct free trials, and see what tools and customer support best match your needs. There's one important thing I like to stress. All these tools are excellent for A/B testing. They are great for setting up A/B tests and having visitors split over the different variations. But I never use these tools to analyze my data and to analyze the results of the tests. Instead, for data analysis, I use Google Analytics or another data platform. There are 4 reasons for this. First, with Google Analytics, data is much more trustworthy. The core of Google Analytics is to collect data, and you probably have some analysts working on the setup. The core of a testing tool is to build A/B tests and split visitors over the different variations. Second, in Google Analytics or any other data platform, there is a lot more data that you can use to analyze your experiments. You can, for instance, apply more segments and check out page interactions through events. This can give you a lot more valuable insights. Third, you can automate data analysis, as we will do later on in this course. And fourth, you want one source of truth. If you start using more sources for your data, you will find some differences between the data. So your testing tool might state something different than your analytics. You do not want to discuss this every time you finalize an experiment. So instead, choose a single source of truth. As analytics has more reliable data and more colleagues are using it for their data analysis, it is the best source of truth. So, that said, let's set up our A/B test for the Google Merchandise Store in Google Optimize. Let's set up our first test for the Google Merchandise Store on the cart page. We find ourselves in Google Optimize. Let's click Create Experience. First, we have to state the name. Let's name it this. Ensure it is the same name as in your documentation tool, so it's easy to find the experiment. Next, we have to state the URL. Let's copy it from here and paste it here. As we are running an A/B test, we can leave this as it is, so let's click Create. We will check out this page once we set up our A/B test. So for now, let's click Add Variant. We will leave the name as it is, Variant 1, so let's click Done. To set up the variant, we click Edit, and the visual editor starts loading. If you are in an incognito browser, it could happen the visual editor does not load. So here we have it. We are now in the visual editor. For our test, we want to add the return policy right here. There are 2 different ways we can do this. First, you can use the editor to change elements on your page, for instance by clicking the header. Then we can edit the element, and we can remove it, edit the text, edit HTML, insert HTML, and run JavaScript. We can also change dimension, location, the typography, the background color, and a few other options. So if you want to change the text, you can click Edit Element and Edit Text. And now you can start typing. Like so. The second method to make changes is to apply the changes through the code, which you can do so over here. You can add JavaScript and CSS to your page. Now for very small changes, you could use the first method. However, it is much safer to make the changes through JavaScript and CSS code. Definitely for our return policy experiment, we want to add an element to the page. Therefore, making the changes using code is a must. This is because when you make changes directly in the visual editor of a testing tool, the testing tool will start writing its own code based on the changes you made. Often, this code will not work on all browsers, all devices, and different screen sizes. And this will cause errors and bugs on your website, and therefore your test is flawed, thus giving your website visitor a bad experience. If you can write code or have a developer who can help you out, the best way to set up an A/B test is to make the changes through JavaScript and CSS in your testing tool. I already have the code for this test over here in CodePen. So this is the CSS, and I will copy it and paste it in the CSS section. And I will do the same for the JavaScript. Let's copy it and paste it in the global JavaScript. Now click Apply. And there it is, our return policy. So that looks good. Let's hit Save. Next, we create an extra variant. And we will name it Copy Control. Now this variant does not have any changes to the web page, but we want to create a copy control to add additional tracking. So when we set the experiment live, we want 50% of the visitors to see variant 1 and the other 50% to see copy control. This will be covered in the next lesson. As mentioned, if you want to run a regular A/B test on your website, all testing tools work pretty much the same. I will briefly show you in VWO. So this is their visual editor. Again, we can make the changes directly in the editor by clicking the element you like to change. But you can also insert CSS and JavaScript code right here. Here is the JavaScript and here is the CSS. So just as in Optimize, we can copy the CSS and paste it here. And we can do the same for JavaScript. And there we have it. So this works exactly the same. Now when you have the full version of VWO, you also get heat maps, session recordings, forms, surveys, and funnel analysis. You can even get documentation and a few other options. But for documentation, I would still strongly advise to use Airtable. But for setting up a regular A/B test, the tools work the same. Also here in Convert, another popular testing tool, there's a visual editor and again, the options to add JavaScript and CSS. In summary, choose a testing tool that best matches your needs. Remember that a testing tool is for splitting visitors over different variations. You want to run your analysis in your data tool, like Google Analytics. We will do so together later on in this course. And finally, build your A/B tests using CSS and JavaScript. Don't make changes directly in the visual editor. In the remainder of this section, we will cover more advanced setups, page targeting, audience targeting, the quality assurance, and other forms of testing. If you do not know JavaScript and CSS and lack development capacity, meaning you can only run a limited number of A/B tests, I invite you to try out my course, Coding for A/B Testing. After completing this course, you should be able to set up 60 to 90% of your A/B tests without the help of a developer. This helps you to run many more experiments and increase your success in conversion rate optimization.